I went to Zelda and she was in her bed. She had sores all over her legs, all over her arms. She was frail. She said, "How did you find me?" I said, "God hasn't forgotten you, Zelda, and neither have millions of Christians around the world. And there's rockets falling and her windows are broken and she's laying in bed." She started crying. She said, "If I die tomorrow, I'll die happy because I'll know that I wasn't forgotten." If you don't hold on to God, you have nothing to hold on to. And more people are recognizing God is the answer. God's story is still unfolding.
There seems to be a lot of people from different parts of the world coming home to Israel right now. Is this an unprecedented time where people are returning because there's so much, I don't know what to say, discord, challenges out there right now? What's going on?
Yeah. We're seeing Jewish people coming home to Israel, just as the Bible predicted, from lots of countries for many reasons. So they're coming home from France because they're facing anti-Semitism. They're coming home from the former Soviet Union because there's war and persecution. They're coming home from South America because there's extreme poverty. They can't even get food and the basics. But Tom, they're also coming home from India because that's the lost tribe from Manasseh.
Wow.
And they're coming home from Ethiopia because that's the lost tribe of Dan. That we're living in times where on one hand, there's extreme darkness that we all feel. Physical darkness, spiritual darkness. There's spiritual warfare and there's physical wars. But on the other hand, Tom, God makes his light shine even brighter in the darkness. That from this turmoil, we're seeing his word come to fruition in so many beautiful ways. And I think we could both say also that we see so many Christians and Jews rediscovering their roots, because I think we live in a time right now where if you don't hold on to God, you have nothing to hold on to. And more people are recognizing God is the answer. Being connected to the Spirit who's alive in each one of our lives is the answer. God saw us. He has a mission for us. And if you don't believe that, these days are very dark. So to see how many people are having this revival, communities, countries, churches, synagogues, God's word is alive, sometimes even brighter on the backdrop of darkness.
Wow. I was especially struck recently. I had a phone conversation with Bishop Lanier, who I'm not sure of what his title is with the organization.
Chairman of our U.S. board.
Chairman of the U.S. board. But I saw him in a clip that was so powerful. He was standing on the border because he wasn't able to take his cameras where he was getting ready to go. The Syrian Christians were being murdered. Their churches, they had someone go in, do a self-explosive, bomb, and it was disastrous in there. And the Druze are being persecuted and killed. And I remember the bishop talking about the significance that we've got to get food in there.
Yes.
And not only was IFCJ there to load up the trucks and to provide the food, but the IDF was the ones who brought it in. Tell me, how in the world did you pull that off? How did you become aware of the situation? And how were you there to help these people in this time? And then I saw the bishop actually talking to the people family members had just been murdered. So, that's not the fun part of this. The great part about this was IFCJ was there taking care of Christians and Druze on the ground, and they were bringing supplies from Israel, protected by the IDF, to get that food supply in.
Yes.
Tell me, how did that happen?
Well, Tom, this is not a one-way street. This is a fellowship. This is Jews and Christians standing together. And many people don't know about it, but Christians are being persecuted across the Middle East. The population in Bethlehem used to be over 80% Christian when Israel was in charge. And now it's at under 10%. We see in Syria, in Lebanon, in Iraq, across the Middle East, and in Africa, Almost every single day, there are Christians being killed and targeted and persecuted and murdered. And Syria's right over Israel's border. We can't turn a blind eye. And so inside of Israel, the fellowship has always helped Christians. We built a hospital in Nazareth. We provide food boxes for Christmas. We're there for the Christian community in Israel, just like we're there for the Jewish community. And when I saw what was happening right over Israel's border in Syria, I didn't know how it would be done, Tom, but I said, we need to be there now to help them. And I love the story of Joshua, right? Where he looks up at the sky and he tells the sun to stop.
Yeah.
That takes some serious audacity, right?
That's pretty bold.
And sometimes I think about it. I use that as an inspiration for me so often because I think about, did Joshua know the sun was going to stop? He just knew he had no other choice and he had to trust in God. Wow. And so he demanded something. And you know what? God obeyed because his faith was so strong that I said, I don't know how we're going to get into Syria to deliver aid to the Christians, but that is what the fellowship's going to do. We saw, of course, the Assad government get overtaken. We saw a new Syrian regime come in. We still don't know exactly what's going to be in Syria, but we know that in January, there were over 1,000 Christians who were killed, many of them in their churches, others in their home. And they reached out to us. They said, we don't have a medical clinic. We don't have any medicine. We don't have any way to get aid. People that could be treated, some of them with even antibiotics, would die because they didn't have that. And we don't have food. We're cut off. And so the fellowship turned to the IDF, to the Israeli Defense Forces, and we said, we'll provide the aid.
How did
you bring
do
it
that,
in.
But that's got to be a story.
Hello?
Yeah. No, who do you call? You know?
Well, the fellowship is the largest philanthropic organization on the ground in Israel. And we don't get involved in policy or anything like that.
Listen, I want to say something there.
Yeah.
Before I really knew you,
yeah,
and we're kind of checking, who are these guys? What do they do? And I have some friends in Israel and was calling around. And Samuel Samaji, which everyone's familiar with here, and Maddie and these guys who work with TBN frequently. Yeah. And I said, who are these guys? What are these things? Well, listen. When COVID hit this country, the Israeli government asked IFCJ, who was so good at handling things at such an economical value, that they were the ones chosen to give the aid to Israelis through the COVID calamity. So I went, okay, if the Jewish leadership trusts them at that level, you guys are doing amazing work. So that was a real compliment.
Thank you. Well, we believe that we have to work as efficiently and effectively and cost-effectively as possible using volunteers, using infrastructure on the ground that already exists. And so we've built life-saving projects on October 7th and almost every single day since during COVID. When there's a crisis that everyone else is paralyzed, we look at it as our obligation and privilege to be able to move in and save lives. And that's exactly what we did in Syria. And so we built projects. We build projects. That's what we do. The fellowship builds projects. We started the first national food program in Israel that now there are around 50,000 families getting food from the Israeli government because the fellowship built that project. We've built projects for children in orphanages. We've built projects for battered women to get the help that they need. We've built projects and then we give it to the government because what I realize is the government's responsible, Tom. What we're doing is charity. What we're doing is taking very often the widow's mite to be able to give a meal, give a food box, $25 to bring a food box, or a soup kitchen that's able to feed lots of people who need it. But we're not the government. But we are very effective in how we distribute aid because we make sure every single dollar goes to the right place. And so we're able to do that for the government. So in Syria, we've set up 2 medical clinics. We've provided emergency medical aid, for everything from antibiotics to anesthesia to medicine for all different types of heart diseases that's saving lives. And we've distributed over 1,500 food boxes to the Christians in Syria.
Beautiful.
We need to stand together, Tom.
That's beautiful.
We need to stand together.
Yeah. You know, I had a few friends in Hollywood, and one of them gave me a pitch once that talked about, you know, when the Twin Towers fell,
Yeah.
he said, the story we want to tell is not the people who were running from the towers. It was the story of those who were running towards them when they saw that. IFCJ is one of those organizations that run towards the disaster, towards the calamity, while so many others run and flee. And I think that's important to note that.
Wow, it hits me so strong, because it's something that I feel my own personal mission to be there on the ground, because I have to lead this ministry. I have to see it firsthand. And so I've put myself in many war zones and many situations that have been scary. And my motto is always, my job and my mission is to turn fear into faith. And when I go out there, I'm able to bring faith and hope to people who are suffering there with fear. So when I went to Kiryat Shmona after our soup kitchen was hit by a rocket from Hezbollah, it was scary to go there. The rockets were still falling. And my staff and the Israeli government said, don't go there. And I said, well, are there people there who need our food? Yeah. Are they living there in that war zone? Just a mile away from Lebanon, where there's thousands of rockets being shot into their cities? Yeah. Okay, well then I'm going. and it's something that is a calling and a mission. And during the Iran war, when there were huge ballistic missiles being shot into Israel, and one missile hit in a town called Bat Yam, a very poor town near Tel Aviv, and it knocked down 4 buildings. And immediately, the missiles were still falling. I went with our volunteers and our staff to distribute aid, and the ground was shaking, Tom. The ground was shaking. There were no shelters there. And we got there before a lot of the first responders. And we were there as the rockets were falling to give them bulletproof vests and helmets, because they were putting themselves in danger in order to look for those bodies, the people that were buried under the rubble. And so we distributed the flak jackets and helmets to the heroic first responders who were going in. And then we went and delivered food to the elderly that were in the near vicinity. And for 2 miles, every single window was broken. And I heard about this woman, Zelda, 92 years old, Holocaust survivor, has no family.
That's my granddaughter's name.
Wow.
Zelda.
Wow. Well, Zelda, all of her family was killed in the Holocaust. She was running for her, she's 92 years old, to the shelter when the rockets were falling, and she fell. And she was bedridden. Nobody was able to bring her any help. And I went to Zelda, and she was in her bed. She had sores all over her legs, all over her arms. She was frail. And she said, how did you find me? I said, God hasn't forgotten you, Zelda, and neither have millions of Christians around the world. And there's rockets falling, and her windows are broken, and she's laying in bed. She started crying. She said, if I die tomorrow, I'll die happy, because I'll know that I wasn't forgotten. That's what we do. We go into war zones to serve. And you know what, Tom? During that Iran war and every single day of the war since October 7th in Israel, we continue to have rescue flights. We continue to have Aliyah flights. Israel's the only country, I think, that it's in the middle of the war, and you have rescue flights from other places bringing them to the war zone, because they just want to be home. They just want to be in the Holy Land. They just want to be part of this story, because what we see through this story is that God's story is still unfolding,
Amen.
That God's word is still alive, that God's scriptures are not something of the past. Yeah. It's something we're living and feeling and taking part in every single day.
It's alive and active and sharper than any two-edged sword, is what we would say that.
Yes.